I have already reviewed the Nothing Phone 1 twice on this channel, and the general consensus for that device was that it had a solid foundation but needed to be built upon. And indeed, with both hardware and software, the Nothing Phone 2 has delivered upon some of these improvements. Let's take a look. Firstly, let's talk glyphs, since those are the most striking features of the Nothing phones, except on the 2A. Indeed, the glyph panel has been segmented, allowing for more functions, like showing a countdown timer. Except, you have to set the timer with the Quick Settings widget, so you almost never use that feature, as it doesn't tap into the Google Clock app. And the third-party adoption has not really progressed since the phone's release. But that doesn't mean that no new features have been added. The way that the glyphs light up has been reprogrammed. Before, each glyph corresponded with a certain aspect of the song. Now, the brightness of the glyph corresponds with intensity, and the whole glyph seems to respond to the beat of the song, instead of being segmented by bass, beat, and intensity. It doesn't feel as intentional as it did before the update, but it certainly looks more flashy. The Nothing Phone 2 now features a light sensor on the back of the phone for adjusting the brightness of the glyphs. Otherwise, I've said enough about the design in my first video. That is to say, I still love it, and I hope that the Nothing Phone 3 keeps the same design language. In terms of the display, Nothing has really stepped up the game. The Phone 1 suffered from both smearing during dark content, and many units suffered from a green tint issue. Both of these issues have now seemed to be fixed. While the display is mostly color accurate, moving the white balance slider all the way to cool makes it very comparable to the iPad and iPhone. The tint is slightly more magenta on the Nothing Phone, but it's close enough to do photo manipulation on, though keep in mind, colors seem to shift depending on brightness too. The only thing that I would say that lets this phone down is its brightness actually. I'm so used to the iPhone being perfectly visible even on the sunniest days, that it actually makes the Nothing Phone look quite dim in comparison, though the iPhone can't sustain this high brightness for long before it overheats anyway. In terms of software, there's been some updates as well. The new atmospheric light wallpaper is seriously gorgeous, turning your lock screen wallpaper into blobs, with a noise filter on top. The blobs are randomized each unlock too, and expand and move around during unlock. The Nothing widgets are also a bit more purposeful now, and while I'm not a widget person, I like how they represent the essentials in a stylish way. When taking a screenshot, you finally have a markup tool for drawing and cropping your screenshot, and when choosing to share, you can have the image delete after you share it. This was one of my big requests during the Nothing Phone 1 video. The camera software has also had a lot of improvements. The first one is Ultra XDR. This is a feature that has been available on Apple devices for years, and has recently come to the S24 Ultra and Pixel line of phones, with an asterisk depending on which model you own. This feature makes the display brighter for brighter parts of the image, like a HDR video. Another improvement over the Nothing Phone 1 is the ability to switch cameras while recording, and the transition is reasonably smooth. Not the best, but better than a Pixel. Though like on budget devices, you aren't able to switch cameras during 4K 60fps recording, though at least the option is there now compared to the Nothing Phone 1 to be able to shoot 4K 60 video. There is still no 4K video recording from the front-facing camera however. Motion photos still keep turning off every time I reopen the camera app, a bug I spoke about with the Nothing Phone 1. The Google Photos style filters have also been removed for Nothing's own filters, which are fine? Artistic, I guess you could call them. I spoke about the camera quality highly with the Nothing Phone 1, and I still don't have any complaints. The color rendition is beautiful, and I think it stands up there with the likes of Google and Samsung. The 12 megapixel mode has an okay balance of natural and artificial sharpness. The software isn't trying to pull every single detail out of grass strands and leaves on trees, but you can zoom in without a massive quality loss. In the 50 megapixel mode however, surprisingly, natural sharpness doesn't increase, and instead the artificial sharpening takes over, and makes the images look frankly horrible. In third-party apps such as Instagram, the images do get post-processed before they are shot, which improves the final quality, though at the expense of a massive shutter lag. In Nothing's camera app, there is no such lag. Also, third-party apps aren't able to switch to the ultra-wide camera. Speaking of which, it's bang on average. I believe it's the same sensor as from the Phone 1, so it isn't the sharpest, with the image post-processing compensating for it, and it has some detail loss in the corners too. The front-facing camera is decently detailed. Only complaint that I have is that I've noticed a lot of closed eyes and blur on my selfies, likely because of the shutter lag that isn't there on the main camera. Last thing I'll point out with photo taking is that we have a portrait mode, and again no complaints with that, and a RAW mode for finer control over the output of the images, like the removal of any artificial sharpening for an ironically more detailed image. In terms of video, the 4K output is rather lacking in detail, as is the case for many Android phones, especially in this price range, and 1080p is even worse, having that over-sharpening effect I loathe. Though the stabilization is top-notch in all video modes, though in darker lighting you can really notice the EIS struggle, and the wide-angle camera is a little jumpy too. Something interesting is that the microphones are rather quiet, and this has resulted in me struggling to take calls, or even use Shazam. Speaking of calls, I've also been unable once to make calls, giving me a cryptic error message. The speakers seem to be identical to the Nothing Phone 1. That is to say, they are really poor. There is no bass that comes out of them sadly. The vibration motor is the same as on the Phone 1 too, with it sounding like you are tapping on glass. It's not quite the quality of Apple's haptic motor, but it doesn't sound cheap either. It's quite unique. The performance is snappy for the most part. The only UI stutters I've noticed are within Instagram. However, I'm still not too impressed with how often apps are getting thrown out of memory. Considering we have 12GB of RAM, this shouldn't be happening, but otherwise I've not had any other performance issues, and despite the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 being close to 2 years old now, the phone has been speedy. The fingerprint scanner is also nearly instant, and never seems to fail to scan on the first go, even with a screen protector attached, though the screen seems to be either too sensitive or not sensitive enough at any given moment, causing me to accidentally touch something I didn't mean to, or be unable to do the gestures without me pressing down hard on the screen. The phone also stays relatively cool compared to my iPhone 15 Pro. I have, however, once had the phone get very unstable. The camera stopped working, and the system UI kept freezing and glitching up. A restart solved it, but this was at a less than ideal time. The light sensor is also temperamental, and I'm having to manually adjust the brightness more than I would like. The battery life has also been fantastic. I can get just under 8 hours of screen on time. Overall, the Nothing Phone 2 is a great phone, but not without its problems. Sadly, things like the speakers, microphone reception, and light sensor are hardware issues, and there is no chance of those problems being fixed in software. And things like delayed notifications and apps not staying in memory seem to be due to battery optimizations, which means that they are the intended effect. But outside of those problems, the phone is fun. It's built well, I love its design, the cameras are overall far better than they have any right to be at this phone's price, and the battery always seems to last me a full day. So while my iPhone has been put aside, I've not felt like I've downgraded to a worse device, except when I need to receive a phone call, that is. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you for the next video.